Now, from London, Ambassador Hussam Zomlot, head of the Palestinian mission to the United Kingdom. Ambassador, good evening. Late for you as well. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you, sir. I mean, it's a day. Look, celebration's the wrong word. I would say perhaps relief is a better word that some of the hostages have been released, and in return, of course, the detainees are on their way home too. What word would you use?
I would use a glimpse of hope that this carnage will end, that we will move immediately to a comprehensive, permanent ceasefire. It is really rather unconscionable that we pause for days. We feed our children and our civilians, and then they resume mass killing them, as you have been reporting for the last month and a half. So all of our efforts should seize this glimpse of hope to turn it into a much bigger hope to stop the atrocities and stop it now.
I mean, at the same time, Ambassador, we're talking about, I mean, when I think we're apt to lose sight of the fact when we talk about hostages being released, etc., etc. But these people, 85-year-old women, kids, 9-year-old boys shoved on motorbikes, these people were kidnapped by Hamas, which I understand you're not going to, I mean, you don't approve of in any shape or form. But we are really talking here about people who were kidnapped being released by their kidnappers.
Well, Richard, I have to challenge you here and say that while good on you that you mention these hostages, and good that they are released, they should be released, I mean the Israeli hostages. But why didn't you ask me about the Palestinian hostages, the children that have been released today, that have been in Israeli prisons before the 7th of October? You know, we have hundreds of Palestinian children being grounded by Israel over years and years without charge, without trial, without access to lawyer or to their own families and parents. This is really unconscionable. It doesn't even belong to our today and our humanity. And therefore, this is a time to really focus on the overall system of segregation, of oppression. And you know what? It's so telling. It's so telling that much of the international media is really focusing on the 50
All right,
Israeli...
Ambassador, just a minute. The reason why is simple. First of all, I was coming on to the Palestinians.
Yeah, tell me the reason, Richard. Tell me the reason.
Sure, because when we look at the pictures of how those people were kidnapped, old elderly women thrown over motorbikes, screaming, taken over the border, shoved down tunnels, kept in dark. There is a quantitative and qualitative difference in the mode of detention between the two.
I'll tell you what's the difference. I'll really tell you what's the difference. The difference is the first is done by individuals, but the second is done by a state that sponsored an army. The army invades the innocent people's houses in the middle of the night, in the early hours of the morning, wake up these children in the most terrifying manner.
So the argument you're advancing is...
You asked me, I'll answer you. It is disgraceful to even draw any equity between a state that is a member of the UN, that is Israel, and its responsibility under international law, and between individuals. So in fact, the lack of equity is to focus on responsible, between parentheses, actors, that they should perform in full accordance of international law.
You've answered. Ambassador, you've answered. Let's keep moving. The reality of the situation is tonight that the US president has called for a two-state solution, and yet at the same time the Prime Minister of Israel has said, well, whatever happens in Gaza, the Palestinian Authority will not be able to take back control, or will not be its authority in control. That suggests that the Palestinian Authority will not have a role in whatever happens in Gaza post-war.
Well, that's exactly Netanyahu's agenda, and this has been his agenda since he has been taking office in Israel for the last quarter of a century. And he's public about it, Richard. The issue here, we don't listen to Israeli politicians and leaders, and we don't believe. We have to start listening to them. Netanyahu has been saying he's there to derail the Oslo process, and he did, and he's there to prevent the two-state solution from being implemented. Part of that is not allowing for one united Palestinian political geographic front. Part of that is maintaining the division. Part of that is undermining the PLO and attacking the PLO. Part of that is what they're doing as we speak in the West Bank. The illegal settlers running amok all over the West Bank, killing more than 200 people in the last few weeks since the war on Gaza started. And part of that is this whole logic that Netanyahu can keep the occupation permanent and bypass the Palestinian people. So this is a moment of truth for him and anybody who has followed him for all these years.
The president also said, and he said he couldn't prove it, but he was pretty certain that there was something in it. And I'm sure you heard President Biden, but he said that the reason Hamas committed its atrocity on October the 7th was because the talks with Saudi Arabia over normalizing or at least getting closer with Israel, Abraham Accords or otherwise, it was becoming more real. Do you, sir, do you think that is, not that there's ever a valid reason for what they did, but it explains rather than excuses why then what they did because of Saudi getting closer?
You know, this really sort of snapshot of this situation. Let me tell you this. The Palestinian-Israeli conflict was not caused by Hamas or any other group. It's 100 years conflict. It's the conflict that causes and creates all these Palestinian political and militant group all through our history. Right. And perhaps the world need to, particularly the US, go straight to the root cause of all this, which is the illegal military occupation. This is not an issue. This is not an issue between Arabs and Arabs or Palestinians and Palestinians. This is an issue with Israel's 56 years of occupation and 75 years of Nakba and ethnic cleansing, and that's why you have the situation we have today and we are discussing today. We need to go to the straight to the root cause of all this.
That's fair enough, sir. I hear what you say, but now please answer my question. Do you think that there is anything in the truth that the catalyst for the act now and then was the fact that Saudi was getting closer to normalizing relations with Israel? And if that were the case, then the hope of Hamas in doing what it did, which has succeeded beyond any possible dreams, do you think there's any truth in that?
The only thing that would have really derailed any sort of normalization in the region is Israeli policies and actions. And Saudi Arabia have been absolutely clear that they want to see as a resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. They want to see the end of occupation, and they want to see the two-state solution. And therefore, what could have stopped is what the Saudi people and the Saudi leaders have been watching on their TV sets in terms of the Israeli atrocities, war crimes, ethnic cleansing of our people in Gaza and in the West Bank. So this what brings all of us as a region. And yesterday, the day before yesterday, I joined many foreign ministers from Saudi Arabia, from the Arab countries and Islamic countries, meeting the Foreign Secretary of Britain here, Mr. David Cameron. And there is a united position that this time is a time to focus on the root cause. This time is to uproot occupation and not to go through the process and lengthy interim agreements. This is a time when we do a big bang to finish this business once and for all.
Ambassador, a strong discussion, but your point came across there. Thank you for taking time to talk to us this evening.